What's up, BookTube? Welcome back. My name is Laura if you're new here, and today I'm talking about all the books that I read in May. The slump is real, y'all. I have been in such a bad reading slump all month long. I completely failed my TBR for May. I didn't read a single book off of it. I DNF'd 2 of them, and the other 2 I didn't even attempt to pick up. I was just not in the mood for them at all. So throughout the month of May, I finished 6 books and DNF'd 4 of them, and giving me a total of 1,572 pages, which is less than half from my previous 2 months each. So a significant decrease in pages and books and just overall enjoyment as well, but what can you do? So we'll start with my DNFs. The first one was Queerly Beloved by Susie Dumond. This one was an arc that I got from NetGalley that I was so excited for. It's a queer contemporary romance following a former baker who is now a bridesmaid for hire, who falls in love with the newest lesbian in town. I had such high hopes for this book, and I was not feeling it whatsoever. I didn't mind the characters. I liked the found family element to it, but there was like no chemistry between the main character and the love interest, like at all. I did not feel it whatsoever, and I just was not having a good time with it. I also didn't like how the main character is a people pleaser. Like, that's a whole part of the book. Throughout the book, she's meant to overcome that and kind of get better with it. So like, it was very much intentional. I just personally didn't enjoy it. And this one, I got about 100 pages into it, and then I was like, no, I'm done. Can't do it anymore. The next one was The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. This one I did not get far into at all. It was 35 pages in, and I'm so sad about it. This one is a middle grade about the grandchild of a Yaga, and they live in this house that has chicken legs. It's a like sentient creature thing, and they travel all over and do whatever a Yaga does. And the main character is supposed to be in training to be the next Yaga once her grandmother passes on, but she wants nothing more than just be a normal kid and make friends, and she's really lonely. So like, I love the concept of it, but holy shit was this main character annoying. I feel bad saying that about a 12-year-old. In the 35 pages that I read, I couldn't count how many times she said that she was lonely and that she wants friends and that she wants to be a normal kid. It was just constant. The entire world building surrounded her being lonely. Every single time that the author was trying to be like, here's this cool world, the main character then goes, it's really cool, but like, I'm so lonely though. And I'm like, I get it. I understand you're lonely. I don't need to hear it every other sentence. Like, Jesus. So I really just couldn't do it. I enjoy middle grade books, but like sometimes they can be very hit or miss for me because the characters are kids, obviously. Like, they're gonna act like kids, which I'm not saying they shouldn't be acting like kids. I just personally find it very annoying. So like, while I do enjoy middle grade, I'm very selective about it, and this one just didn't work for me, unfortunately. The third book I DNF'd was Matched with the Demon by Chace Verity. This is the third book in the Loved by the Demon trilogy. I read the first 2 books at the very end of April, and I loved them. They were just like good, fun, ridiculous, like smutty monster romances. So I had high hopes for this one, and it just like completely flatlined. I got 25 pages into it and I could not continue. It's meant to be a pretty absurd series, especially the third book. Like, that's what the author was going for, but it just reached a level of absurdity that was too much for me personally. Because in this one, the main character matches with a guy on a dating app and then goes for their first date, and turns out his date is a like tentacle garbage monster. Like, he like literally eats trash, and like trash is his favorite thing ever. It was weird. And also too, this happened in the first 2 books, but like only a couple of times, but the third book it was a lot. But the author is an American who now lives in Canada, and so she was like putting in all these like little Canadian isms into the book, which is great. I thought it was cute. But in the third book, it was insane levels of like little Canadian stereotypes. Just to give you an example of a few, like not even all of them, just a few of the things that I noted in my like DNF review. In 25 pages that I read, there are mentions of hockey, Nickelback, flannel, the Calgary Stampede, poutine, snow, beer, fishing, and saying A all the time. So that is at least 9 Canadian stereotypes that were thrown in there within 25 pages. Like, that is way too many. And yes, they are all pretty much accurate. As a Canadian, we're ridiculous. I know this. But it was just kind of annoying to read because it was just like so obvious. This author was trying to be like, we're in Canada, we have to do all these things. It's like, you don't need to do that. You really don't. You can be a little bit more creative with how you portray your depiction of Canada and the people within it. It was just a bit much. And the last one that I DNF'd was Louisiana Longshot by Jana, Deleon. This one I'm reading for a secret TBR, which it's not hard to guess what it is after you hear what the book is about. But this one is a cozy mystery set in a small town called Sinful, Louisiana, following a CIA agent who has to go into hiding. So she is disguised as somebody else, and then somebody gets murdered in town, and things kind of go from there. This book, there was like potential for me to like it. There were like certain elements that I thought that I could have like really enjoyed, but the main character was so goddamn annoying that I could not continue. I got about 40 pages into it and just couldn't do it. The main character, the person who she's disguised as, is a very like feminine, she was like a beauty pageant queen, all these things, and the main character just spent so long just railing on her for being so feminine and like getting like fake nails and fake hair and like wearing makeup and just enjoying things that are feminine, and then like calling her like an anti-feminist and saying that she's going backwards in time and like all these things. It was just like, why? Like, if you're actually a feminist, then like the point of it is that women have the right to choose whatever the fuck they want to do with their lives. So like if somebody wants to be a beauty queen, they can do that. That's okay. But anyways, it was just a lot, and like the bad kind of sarcastic where like it's not funny, it's just like really negative, and I was not having it, so I DNF'd it. Alright, moving on to the books that I did finish. Before I get into this first one, I have to explain why I read this book before I say what it is, because y'all are gonna judge me so hard for it. I'm judging myself for it. But on TikTok, I found this author, Ren K. Morris, who I'll of course link down below, but they were doing Monster May, so they were doing one recommendation per day of a monster erotica. And I had planned on reading all of them, but then the reading slump happened, so I didn't, so I only ended up reading 2 of them, and that's what this first one is, and that was Railed by the Easter Bunny by Dalia Davies. I read a book called Railed by the Easter Bunny, and it was not good. This is exactly what it sounds like. The main character is in a relationship with the like the city's crime lord. Basically, he's like top dog. He somehow, I'm not sure how, has some kind of magic that makes him be like the leader of their whole city's underworld, and he is very abusive towards the main character, and so she escapes to the one place that she thinks she can go to, which is to the goddess of spring. And the goddess's idea for how to get back at the guy is to give the main character to her son, the Easter Bunny, and impregnate her, and then one day when her heir is old enough, he will actually have more power than the ex and like take him out of power, because he'll have more right to the throne, or like whatever it's called in this world. The world building wasn't that good in this. It was not really about the world, to be honest. So there was like a very brief description of like what was actually going on behind the scenes, but the majority of it was just sex. So she agrees, and off she goes into the Easter Bunny's lair, I guess, where it's some like weird like masquerade party thing. She meets the Easter Bunny, who is indeed covered in fur. He is a humanoid rabbit man with long pointy ears, whiskers, a rabbit nose, and like he is literally covered in fur. And apparently his jizz tastes like sugar or marshmallow fluff, one of the two. I forget what it was, but like, what the fuck? This was not a good book. I don't recommend it. It was bad. This was bad. Like, not even the good kind of bad, just actually bad. So maybe don't read this one. Skip it. You're not gonna miss very much. I gave it 2 stars, and that is really all that I have to say about it. It was terrible. And then the other one that I read for Monster May was Given to the Ghoul by Desirée M. Niccoli. This one was actually pretty good. So it follows our main character, who has been living in this like one town for a couple of years, and this town is always talking about like the ghouls in the desert nearby and everything. She thought that they were all kind of crazy, but then comes the time when they have to choose their sacrifice to give to the ghouls and send off to the desert to die, and of course the main character is chosen, so off she goes with no supplies. She's literally just like walking into the desert to die because she doesn't believe in the ghouls, but then turns out the ghouls are actually real, and they're not as evil as the townspeople seem to think they are. On her first night in the desert, she meets the ghoul who's meant to eat her, or so the townspeople think, and they end up falling in love, and things go from there. So like, honestly, this one was pretty good. I gave it 3 stars. It was really quick and fun, and I liked the characters. Overall, a good time, and yeah, I enjoyed it actually. On a completely different note, the next book that I read was Botanical Folktales of Britain and Ireland by Lisa Schneidau. This is a collection of short stories all about different kinds of myths and legends from Britain and Ireland. This one was really cool. Lisa Schneidau is an ecologist and like an environmental preservationist. So a lot of the stories in this book centered on the folktales that had to do with the environment and that kind of thing. And then between each story, she would kind of like talk about the history of like some of the plants and stuff that were involved in the story to follow. So like, for example, there was a story that involved a yew tree, I think it was. And so before the story, there was a little paragraph on like the history of the yew tree and like why it's important in this mythology. So it was really well done, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I listened to the audiobook while I was gardening one day, and I had a really good time with it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's an anthology, so of course like some stories were like much better than other ones were, so that's always the case with them though. But like overall I would highly recommend this one. It was such a good time. Some of the stories were darker, some were like more for children, so it was a really good variety of different kinds of stories. And yeah, I just loved all the like bits of history in there, and it was really cool. I loved it. After that I read Covet by Tracy Wolff, the third book in the Crave series. I fucking love this series. I'm not even kidding. Just unironically, I really enjoy this series. It's funny because like the first book was like nothing but just like really cheesy, ridiculous teen angst with like vampires and stuff involved. But books 2 and 3 have actually been really good. But like it's great because they still have all that like stupid teen angst that is just like cotton candy to read. But like the world building in book 2, but especially in book 3, is genuinely fantastic. But right, synopsis first. So the Crave series follows a teenager whose parents have just passed away, and so she is sent to go live with her uncle, who runs a super elite, very secret boarding school in the middle of Alaska. And there she finds out that the school is not what it seems, and it's actually full of supernatural creatures like vampires and witches and dragons and werewolves and all these really cool things. Again, it's such a fun series. The first book I was reading because it was so bad, but like genuinely books 2 and 3 have been so good, and I've just really enjoyed them. And like I think book 3 might be my favorite so far. I'm not really sure because like, again, just the world building is so good, and I'm a sucker for good world building. And in this book they travel to a city of giants, and like everything that happens there and just like the way that things are described, it was so cool. And like the beginning of the book, there's a whole thing with the dragons, and like you get to see more of their culture and stuff. Like it was so cool, and I really enjoyed it. I can't say much more about it without getting into spoilers, because like obviously it's the third book in a series, so like literally anything that I say would be a huge spoiler, so I'm just going to leave that one there. But I gave this one a solid 4 stars. I just friggin' loved it. Next up, I read Granny's Got a Gun by Harper Lin. This one is also part of that secret TBR that I'm doing that's really not that much of a secret. This one is a cozy mystery about a retired CIA agent who's living in a small town, and she is bored out of her mind. She misses the days where she got to travel the world and like fight bad people and get in all these like gunfights and everything, whereas now she's an old woman who the highlight of her week is going to a book club where they read really boring tall romance books together, because anything with erotica is just too steamy for their poor old hearts. So she's so bored and like not very happy with life, but there's not much that she can do about it because her body is not what it used to be, and she's not able to do her job anymore. But then one day at her book club, somebody all of a sudden drops dead, and because of her training, she's able to see that he was actually poisoned. And the type of poison that was used, she knows that it had to have been somebody in the room who poisoned him. So she figures that she'd be able to use her training as well as her friendship with all the people in the room to be able to get information and find out who did it before the police can. So that's exactly what she does, and just hilarity ensues. This was such a fun, ridiculous book, and I really enjoyed it. And I gave it 3 stars. I'll definitely be carrying on with the series. It's a 10-book series. I didn't realize how long it was when I first started this book, but I'm down. I'm here for it. It was really fun, and I'm glad that I finally picked it up. And the last book that I read was an arc from Niccoli, and that one was Heckin, Lewd, Trans and Non-Binary Erotica. This is an anthology, and every single story is written by a trans non-binary person, and they're all steamy erotica stories featuring trans and non-binary characters. And these are all vastly different stories. Some of them are sci-fi, some are fantasy, there's some contemporary in there. Some stories are kinky, some are more wholesome. There are people who are ace in here as well. So there's just a whole lot of wonderful representation in here, and I loved this one. I gave it 4 stars. Again, as usual, some stories were better. I think there was one where I skipped like half of it. I got about halfway through and I was like not feeling it, so I skipped the rest of it. But other than that, the rest were pretty solid. I don't think I had a favorite in there. Like they were all just really good. Hello, I lied. I do have a favorite story from this, and I took a screenshot of it because I wanted to share the quote during my wrap up, and then I forgot until right now. I can't think of the name of it, but it was the one, I think it was like the second story, and it's a like pirate thing, and they're on a pleasure ship basically. And the quote, it was when the main character was introducing the captain of the ship. They're described as wearing tight black leather practically painted onto them and a purple cock strapped to her thigh. This was the dreaded and desired genderqueer buccaneer, Captain Adira, and her legendary pegging leg. It was so good. That line is incredible, and I will think about it for the rest of my life. But yeah, this was just such a fantastic anthology, and it came out on June 1st, so it's already available, and I would definitely recommend that you pick it up. Alright, so those are all the books that I read in the month of May. Let me know how your reading month was or what your favorite book was in the month. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!